All right, so welcome everyone. Welcome to Roshan Thiran's webinar series 2020. And today we are going to talk about lessons he learned from growing Leaderonomics from scratch and essentially just running the race of entrepreneurship and how he has started from the scratch and up till today, which is about 12 years right now. Yeah, and today's session is going to be a bit more informal, more casual. We're going to welcome a lot of conversations between the people who are here, you with Roshan and all that. If you have any questions, anything at all that you want to ask about how he runs Leaderonomics or what has happened or anything like that you'd like to know, just go ahead and ask. And if you'd like to even ask these questions live, I could actually open up your mic and request for you to open up your webcam so that we can all see you and have this conversation. So it's a close-knit webinar today. And just to let you know, you can actually put in your Q&A in the Q&A tab, or you can just put it on the public chat, and then we will answer it accordingly, and we'll just have this conversation today. All right, so I'm going to pass it to Roshan. You can take it over now.
Thanks, Andrea, and welcome everyone. I'm just gonna get my mic and stuff up. One of the things that we're gonna do, we're probably gonna spend about 45 minutes or so sharing. Now, if you have any questions, right, there's a Q&A tab. You can feel free to put any of your questions at any point in time, and we will try and address them as we go along, right? So I want to talk a little bit about, I was asked today to really share a little bit about how we run this enterprise and, over the last 12 years, what has transpired. And one of the things that, I try to share a little bit before I just dive in is that, Leaderonomics is really my 12th role. Essentially, in maybe it's smaller, probably I didn't count my 12 big role, essentially in my journey in my career or my life. Early on I was with ExxonMobil for a couple of years before I joined General Electric. So I spent a lot of time, 9 jobs really until here. My 9 jobs were with this company called GE. And most of it was in the US. I did a couple of roles. This one in London, in covering Europe, spending some time in Italy and Denmark and a few other countries. And then I came back here. I came back here to Malaysia to run the aviation business before I moved to Japan and then later to China to be the Asia Pacific head of HR for GE. And then I had a time where I spent some time with Johnson & Johnson. So really spending time with multinationals. Before I started Leaderonomics, and then while I was in Leaderonomics, I took a short sabbatical for about a few months to run the Star Media Group. So I'm going to talk a little bit primarily about this role here in Leaderonomics, but a lot of it is coupled by my experience in my previous roles. So that's kind of how I'm going to chat a little bit. So we're going to spend a lot more time on Leaderonomics, but really the last 12 years has been in Leaderonomics, and it's my 12th role. So hopefully, 12 years is a good starting or ending point. So I'm going to talk about Leaderonomics, and one of the things I want to share a little bit about today is this whole concept of destruction. Many times we talk a lot about building or growing. We talk a lot about growing. How do we grow a business? How do we build something? But what I realized, one of the most important lessons I realized is that before you grow, before you build, you need to destroy. Right? So before you build and you grow, you need to destroy. And I'm learning this lesson also in terms of learning. When you learn something, right, you realize that before you can really internalize what you learn, right, you need to unlearn certain things, right? And this unlearning is really what I call destruction. And this is probably one of the hardest lessons I've learned being an entrepreneur, is that you struggle to destroy what you've built, right? And in the journey of Leaderonomics, right, I realized that along the journey, right, I had to build, destroy, build, destroy, build, destroy. And that's one of those things that are especially very, very hard to do. I noticed there's a question from I did see a question from Ralph, right? What gives you clarity to come out of MNC and start your own enterprise? I think that's a very good question, and please shoot your questions right away. And yeah, why did I do that, right? And actually, I'm going to answer some of this, right, as I go along in the journey. So let me start with Leaderonomics, right? And really, this is why I left Johnson & Johnson and GE. So I was in General Electric for 12 years, and when I was there, one of the roles I took, what my last role there was the head of HR for Asia Pacific. So I had pretty much a very nice broad role. Every week, I'd be 1 week in Japan, 1 week in China, 1 week in India, 1 week in Australia, 1 week in New Zealand, 1 week in wherever, Malaysia or Southeast Asia, spending time across Asia, and probably once every quarter, spending a couple of weeks in the US with the global teams, right? And when I came back to Malaysia, right, and when I started the aviation business, actually started there, I realized something. I realized that people know what they know, and they don't know what they don't know. Sometimes in the corporate world, they call this unconscious incompetence, right? Unconscious incompetence, right? So you're unconsciously uh, not knowledgeable about your incompetence, right? So you don't know what you don't know, right? And I realized a lot of talent in Malaysia, a lot of people, a lot of kids in Malaysia, they don't know what they don't know. And because you don't know what you don't know, you cannot improve yourself, you cannot learn, you cannot grow. And so I started an experiment when I was actually, in GE at that time. I said, look, let me take a couple of Malaysian students and let me see if I can develop them. These are really kids from Sabah and Sarawak primarily at that point in time. So really working with these Sabah Sarawakian kids and some Orang Asli kids and say, if I take them and I protect them and I educate them and I push them, right? And later I house them in GE, right? As a either an intern or as a starting role, a small management trainee or stuff like that. And if I protect them for a couple of years, will they be able to transition in the system, and will they be able to be good talent in the system? And I did this experiment for about 6 to 8 years, right, in GE. And the answer is yes. If you take a person, and regardless of their background, right, and this is whether it's Sabah, Sarawakian, or Orang Asli, and these are underprivileged children, and if you take them and you groom them, right, you realize that at some point in time they become successful leaders in GE. So it's not so much the schooling and the everything. There is elements to it, but if you give them time to develop, and if they're hungry and if they want to grow, they can actually transfer and or morph into leaders, right? And so this thing plagued me, So I said, what? Let me start up a small NGO. And the whole thought was, how do we fix the world at first? And then I said, no, let's not fix the world. Let's just fix Malaysia, right? So how do we fix Malaysia? And to me, the idea of fixing Malaysia, right, was as I did these little experiments, right, is that I realized that leadership lies at the root of a lot of problems. If you look at the bad leadership in our country, from 2005, 6, I mean, really, essentially, for the last 60 over years, right, leader at the root of all our problems is a leadership issue. Whether it's political leadership or whether it's all kinds of leadership. And I realized that if I take a person and I protect them and I grow them into leaders, right? That means I take one person and I grow them into a leader and I protect them, and then later I enable them to execute as a leader. I execute as a leader. I should be able to then see these guys transform the societies or the communities that they're in. And that's kind of the vision we had, me and Hui Meng, and a couple of others who joined us, and say, if we can use leadership as a gauge, if we can train and build leaders in our society, maybe these leaders will come back and transform the communities that they serve, right? But we need to journey. It's because it's a 10, 15, 20-year journey. And that's how we ask ourselves this question. What if we do that? What if we invest ourselves into growing leaders and building communities of love instead of leadership by fear and hate and all these other things? So Ralph, to your question, right, I came to a point and said, we started this in 2007, really. In 2006, we started this entity called Leaderonomics. And what happened is that we realized that, hey, this is we ran camps and we ran a number of things for youth. We realized that, hey, this is quite effective, this is working, And so in 2008, we had an opportunity. There was an investor that said, hey, we like what you're doing. Actually, they really wanted me to come and work for them. I refused. And so in exchange, basically, they said, you come and work for this NGO called Leaderonomics. We'll make that into a company, make that into a social enterprise, and you come and do some consulting work for us. And so we took that money and we merged ourselves and we set up Leaderonomics. And so our Leaderonomics was simple. We said, we believe everything should be a science. Leadership should be a science. We see a lot of things are fluff out there. A lot of leadership is fluff. Some guy says, I experienced this, so that means that's leadership. There's 7 ways to be a leader. All these things we believe is fluff. The real way is there needs to be a science of building leaders. There needs to be a science of transforming organization. So we dedicated the next few years of our lives to find out what this science was and what this transformation process was for organizations. Really, it's communities. And so we came up with this very clear vision. Our vision was simple: grow people into leaders, build communities of love, and transform the nation. Right? And so we set that in 2007. Again, we said that, and this premise is that if we can help one person to become a leader, that one person will be able to transform the community that this is kind of the statement that I made at that point in time. If we keep repeating this over and over, growing one person who then builds their community, maybe then the nation will be transformed. If you have many transformed communities, slowly these communities will transform the nation. And so that's how Leaderonomics was formed. And as we started again with a single investor. And we started really as a social enterprise, right? We had no aspirations to be an enterprise. Now that started in 2008. And in 2008, we started with 4 people, right? I mean, with 4 employees essentially. And somewhere in mid 2008, we had some investments. And at that point in time, something interesting happened. And this is what I realized and learned. When crisis happens, right? You see, when a crisis happens, right? Usually we feel frustrated. So crisis happened because we were invested by, actually, it was by this investor, a guy called Dato Stephen. But he actually was the CEO and chairman of the Star Media Group, or executive deputy chairman of the Star Media Group. And he made that investment through the Star. And so Star owned us, 51% of us. But what happened was, within a few months after the investment was made, he was taken away as the leader. He was 23 over years as the CEO of Star, but he was kind of replaced by a new leader, and there was a new chairman and there was a new vice chairman. And when the new guys came in and said, "We don't like this model. What's this social enterprise? We don't want anything to do with you guys. You're on your own. We still have 51 ownership, but we want you to become a business. We want you to make money, and we want dividends." And so suddenly in early 2000, this happened January 1st when I sat down with Dato Stephen. He said, hey, he pulled me aside that on January 1st, we went for Teh Tarik at a KLGCC, it's a golf course. And he said, no, I got something to tell you. I'm no more going to be in the Star, and you're on your own. And I said, oh, okay. And so suddenly, prior to this, we had a very simple agreement. I'd be a consultant for the group, and they pay us some money, and then I could hire employees. Suddenly, this all expired, and suddenly we had to morph, not just as a social organization or NGO, we had to now become a social enterprise. We still wanted to maintain our social business, but we needed to have products. We needed to have services. And so in 2009, we started this journey. Previously, it was all about youth stuff, youth camps and youth learning and all youth related. But in 2009, we started to say, hey, we need to look at customers. We need to talk to Sime Darby. We need to talk to Maxis. We need to talk to these guys and provide services to them. And that's how Leaderonomics really started, where we started in 2009, really, where we started to provide services for organizations so that we can support our community work. And that was the model. And in 2008, we won some awards, the AYA Youth Awards, but really it was because we did great community and great youth work, right? The stuff that we do. But today, right, 2020, we are in 5 countries. We are in Malaysia, we are in Thailand, we're in India, we're in Singapore, and we are in Cambodia, and we are moving to start up in Indonesia, right? So we are in all these countries. We have a very good, we still have the community business where we started with, but we also have a corporate business and we have a digital business. And today, we're recognized as one of the biggest social enterprises in across Malaysia and Asia. But we are also recognized as one of the top vendors in terms of HR products and services. So I'm going to talk to you about our journey over the last couple of years and some of the challenges, because as we understand, and again, if you look at our customers today, right? I mean, I was showing some of our investors. I say, hey, because we had a Series A for the first time in our lives. We are going out to market to raise funds to grow our business, right? So it's a completely new sort of experience for me to raise Series A funding and so on. And we say, hey, no, we've got Citibank, we've got GE, Johnson & Johnson, which were my old companies, but we signed them in the last 2-3 years, right? And some big companies like JLL and Coca-Cola and others that are big multinationals. Nestle is another one. So it's pretty if you look back 10 years, I'm like, wow, we thought we were a social organization, really an NGO, right? But today, we have customers that we can compete on a global platform with many of the best leadership development and many of the best learning and development organizations. But I'm going to talk you through our journey. So if you look at typical organizations, right, there is a couple of stages for organizations. There's what I call stage 1, which is existence. Now, stage 1 is where you are just at a point where you want to become a viable business. You have an idea and you say, here's my idea. And many times your idea, right? So my idea was, hey, I want to transform Malaysia, but here's how I think we should do it. We should take one person and we should grow them into a leader. And here's essentially the methodology of how we think. We need a science behind how we grow. So that's existence. And what happens is, as you move on, you go to the next stage. And this next stage is where we call staying alive. And what it happens is, you start to look at, okay, here's my products, here's my service, and is there a market fit? So there's this product market fit. Does it work? And then you try new things. Okay, this product doesn't work, or this service doesn't work. Let me try something else. And it's really about staying alive, right? You've got an idea. You've sort of done some prototypes of it. Now you're trying to commercialize the idea. You're looking at product market fit, and really the idea is you're bootstrapping. You're trying to survive, and you're trying to grow, but at the same time, you're realizing that any day you can close shop, right? Because if one customer pulls out, you're dead. And so there's this whole, people call this the staying alive phase. If you look at it in a corporate speak, it's sometimes called what we call a product market fit, right? And then you come to what we say, hey, now we've got about 2 million in revenue. We've got 3 to 5 stable customers. We've got a good sort of sense. And you start to put in basic processes. We have a billing process, we have a customer process, we have a sales process, and so on. And usually, right, what happens is many companies, right, get stuck here. And in Leaderonomics, right, because we were owned by the Star, and because the Star refused to allow us to go to the next level, when we say let's grow, let's expand, many times they refuse to allow us to go to the next level, where we call this stage, right, the growth and takeoff stage, right, where we really want to scale. I mean, this is sometimes we call this the scaling stage, right? And it requires you, and what I'm going to share a little bit is, for me, when we were in stage 3, we grew revenue to about 10 million. And we just stayed there, 10 million, 10.5, 11, 11.5. For 5-6 years, we stayed in this stage. It was very comfortable. We were not, it was relatively profitable, but this, it was all given to Star as dividends. But we had enough money. We were growing. We ran our community work, and we kept growing that. So we had enough money. All our extra money, we kind of moved it into community and media and some of the other things that we're looking at. But we were relatively successful, and many companies are like this. They grow to 8 million, 10 million, 20, 15 million, and they get stuck. And they get stuck in what we call the success era. But this is not real success, right? This is what we call SME success. Now, real organization starts to scale, and then they get into what we call a maturity stage. So I'm going to walk you through one of the biggest lessons I learned is in this stage. How do we move from this stage to this stage? And that was a big struggle, because many SMEs struggle. I'm an SME, I'm doing okay, but for me to move to the next stage will require me to destroy what I built. And that is really, really tough. And that's kind of the journey I'm going to talk about in the next few minutes. That journey of how we destroy something to build something new. So if you look at our Leaderonomics stage, right? I told you, right, we have the setup and the product market fit stage, right? So we started in 2008, with 140,000 in revenue, right? So about 100 something, 200 something thousand in 2009. Very small setup. We used to lose $1 million every year, but we really didn't care, because we had some funding internally from our parent, and then myself and Hui Ming, we put some of our own money in, and we thought we were doing something good, so it really didn't matter. But we kind of grew to about 10 million in about 2013, 2014, 2015, and then for the next many years, right, we were, like I said, 10 million, 10.5, 10.7, 10.11, 11.1, 11.5, 11.12, even 2016, 12 million, 12.2, 12.3, and we kept going at that stage, So, we 8-10 years, you go to that and you're comfortable. We're not losing money, relatively profitable. We are giving our parent company good dividends. They're very happy. And we found we have a product market fit. We invented a few categories. We were the market leader in the tap category. We are one of the first in the world to create the talent acceleration prize. Huge brand awareness. We have very strong organic growth. Very little we spend on marketing. A lot of it was organic. But we had no investment in systems, no content, no technology. And so then came this next phase, and really in 2017, it came about where I said, look, we have to grow. I'm not going to be happy being a social enterprise in Malaysia. We have to be a global social enterprise that helps youth all over the world. We want to transform, not just because when you look at the world, right, you say there's problems in Africa, there's problems in India, there's problems in Cambodia, there's problems in Vietnam, there's problems in Myanmar, there's problems all over the world, and they're all the same problems. It's all leadership related. You look even the US, right? There's leadership related problems, right? And I said, look, we need to be able to help the world, and we need to scale ourselves. But for us to scale ourselves, we needed to take some corrective measures. We needed to invest in infrastructure. we needed to invest in fix our business model, and we needed to do something, and really the journey started somewhere in 2013, 2014. And there's two phases. So first I want to talk about the first phase, which is I want to fix myself and scale. And the second phase, so from here to here is one phase, and then from here to here is a different phase. So I'm going to talk about two phases. So I'm going to talk about my first is from moving from phase 1 to phase 2, which is, and one of the first things we did was actually to buy our business back, right? So we went to the Star and we said we're buying it, and they said, okay, we want to charge you X amount, and I said, okay. Then they said, no, we want to double it. Then I said, okay. And we negotiated, and ultimately we took a big loan and we bought our business back, right? So that happened. Now, at the same time, we started to realize something, there is certain things, and I call this, that are stopping the company from, many times when you try and change, right, individuals have some issues. It's very hard to change individuals. At the same time, there are some things organizationally that is stopping your people from growing. So there's two things, here, not just one, right? There is an organizational issue. So you need to break and build and redo your organization. But there's also some individual constraint. So there's some individuals that just don't want to change, Hey, the Leaderonomics I know from 2008 to 2013 and 14 is this. I don't want to change. And now you're 2015 and you're saying we have to scale, we have to do this. No, I'm not interested in this. So there's individuals like that, but there's also what we call organizational issues. I'm going to talk a little bit of organizations, right? Because I think the individuals, a lot of HR talk about how do you address individuals such as that. I'm going to talk about the organization. Now, what I learned, and this is our science of transforming organization, is that there are four, when you want to transform an organization, there are four things you need to look at. You need to, and lastly is leadership, right? You need to look at business model. You need to look at alignment. You need to look at systems and structures, and you need to look at culture. I'm going to walk you through very briefly some of these things. And the starting point is really leadership. And it's not leadership of your company, it's leadership of yourself, you as the leader, the ultimate leader, right? And so when 2013, I took a sabbatical. So in 2013, I took a sabbatical where I left Leaderonomics for a couple of months. And I did it purposely, to some extent, because, that time it's very interesting. Our parent company at that time, Star, had no CEO. And so the chairman and the executive deputy chair came to me and said, look, can you come in and help us to transform the media group, right? And I said, okay, interesting. So I took a break from Leaderonomics and I went over to the Star and I started looking at how to transform the Star. Now, this happened right after the election in 2013, so May 2013 till about August, I think, 2013, where I resigned and I said, no, I can't do this. And I went back to Leaderonomics. But what happened in that time, I'm not going to talk so much about this, what happened in Star, but what happened at that time is I got to look at Leaderonomics from a neutral perspective. I'm not working there, I got to look at it as an outside-in perspective. Because now I'm looking outside and I'm looking at how the team performs. And I started to realize, oh my goodness, we need to change. We need to change our business model. We need to have some alignment. We need to change structures and we need to change system. And so the first questions I asked myself, because I knew this, I knew that destruction actually comes before creation, right? If I were to drive change, I need to destroy before I can create, right? And so the first thing I asked myself is, am I the right leader to be able to run this organization? Can I scale this organization? Can I lead this organization? Do I have certain beliefs that are stopping me from enabling me to do this? Can I unlearn and relearn new stuff? Because the more I looked at it, I realized that everything I had built for the last 6 to 7 years, everything that I built, how we built the youth business, how we built the corporate business, how we built all the other business, I realized everything that I built, I had to destroy. And that's tough, because you have, you will tell yourself, no, this one actually no need to destroy. You can just remorph it, you can tweak it, you can change it. But the more I went into it, the more I realized, no, you have to break it and destroy it. Because if you don't break it, people will still go the old way, right? And so that was the big problem, right? I had. So I spent a few months grappling with this. And I remember, if you talk to Hui Ming, my co-founder, she will tell you that those were horrible months because I was like, maybe we should find another CEO. Maybe, I'm not the one, and so on and so forth, right? But finally, I came to the realization as I met many CEOs. I interviewed other people to take over my role, right? So as I interviewed all these people, I realized something, nobody is as passionate about this, and nobody wants us to succeed as much as me. And I said, even though it's going to be very tough, I'm ready. I'm going to unlearn and I'm going to relearn. So I realized at that point is I'm going to take a year or two to really unlearn. And so 2014, I spent 2014 and 2015 really trying to unlearn everything and trying to realize that where's the world moving and where are things moving in the learning space, right? Um, yeah, exactly, Ralph. It's like a man in the mirror sort of episode, right? It's how do you really be a man in the mirror and start to say, hey, I need to change, because the problem is not my organization, the problem is me, because I'm the blocker to change. And when I was okay with that, I went to the next part. Now, what do I need to change? I need to change the business model. I must be ready to destroy, and I'm ready. And I've changed myself, right? So now that I've changed myself, I start to say, okay, what do I need to change? And I realized something, I realized my company was like a pharmacy, You know what's a pharmacy? A pharmacy is a dispensary of medicine. So you've got medicine, right? I've got this product called 7 Habits. I've got this product called Leadership Execution. I got this product from Ram Charan. I got this. So I've got a lot of medicine, right? And I'm giving the medicine to the patient. So when the patient come in and I look at my medicine cabinet, what's your problem? Oh, you got sore throat. No, no, no. Actually, what you have is cancer. You better take cancer medicine, right? Because that's what most product companies do, right? Whatever your problem is, our solution is the best solution, right? And I realized that we had become a pharmacy, but what we needed to become was a hospital. Because if you really want to transform organizations, you cannot just you cannot give medicine, You actually have to design a treatment plan. When you want to, so my take is, how do we do that, right? And to see the problem to do that, right, is that most of my company is built to sell products, right? So we want to sell, okay, we know that we're good at this. Okay, let's sell this product. We're good at action labs. Let's push action labs. And we got this trainer, which is me or Hui Ming or whatever, right? So we are very product selling. Now, to diagnose is different, If you're a hospital, when you go inside a company, you go there and say, let me find out what's wrong with you. If you have a disease or a sickness that I may not have an answer in my cabinet, I have to then create a medicine for you, right? Or I might have to work with somebody else who has that medicine and partner with them to execute. Now, this is a completely different way of selling. It's a completely different way of going to market. And we couldn't find any company that was doing it this way. Every company had their own products and services. So for the first time, I told my guys, we have no products. We're going to throw away all our products. And obviously, they are in there. Hospital will have a pharmacy, right? But the pharmacy is a pharmacy. We're not going to be obligated to our own products. And if we had products, because we actually created many of our own products, we're going to take those products and push it away and give it away to our vendors, or give it away to our trainers, or give it away to our faculty. And they can run our products and they'll pay us a licensing fee. But we don't want to deal with products, because the moment I have my own products, I'm going to sell my own products. I want to be a total diagnostic. And that was the business model, right? And to build that business model, we had to create this, we had to create a diagnostic arm, we had to create a design arm, and we had to create a delivery arm. And then we work with specialists. And this is my pharmacy. This is my medical cabinet. I'll work with all the specialists who comes up with all the medicine, right? Or the companies that come up with their own, pharmacy companies that come up with their own medicine. I'll work with them to partner on delivery. So I might still use their medicine, but I will partner with them on delivery. And this was our new business model. Now, guess how long it took me? Three years to be able to say that this is our business model today. Because for 3 years, what happens naturally in many companies is your employees will want to revert back, because what is simpler is going to a customer and saying, hey, let me just sell product. It's so much simpler just to sell products. It's so much harder to diagnose, because diagnostic can take 2 months or 3 months. So sometimes you go visit your customer 3 times, 4 times, and you are not selling. So then you feel very useless as a salesperson, right? Because you're just talking to your customer, but you're not selling. And the managers also feel uneasy, hey, revenue not coming in, right? But to create that sort of transition created a kind of focus. And for me, it's like, look, I had to destroy all product selling. Destroy. And in fact, even now, we just last couple of years, we started some product stuff. I said, no, we set up a separate company called Evox, right? And let's keep products separately, because we want to focus on diagnostic, design, and delivery, right? And ultimately, most companies focus only on this piece, but we want to make sure that this vertical is also strengthened as much as that the other pieces, right? And so that was how we transform our business model. And I realized this as I thought, okay, 2 months and we'll transform. My goodness, it took us 2016, 2017, 2018, right? And by the time 2018 came, we now realized, okay, we are now scalable. But now we want to go regional, right? We want to go to phase 3, right? And now we have to go to another change, right? Which I'll talk in a bit. So then let's still talk about the phase 1 to phase 2 change. So from 1 to 2, right? Then, okay, business model change. Now I have to change structure, right? My processes had to change. I had to change my value chain, right? Remember, my value chain used to be about product selling. Now it's about diagnostic, design, and delivery. It's a completely different product process, right? So I had to destroy the old processes and build new processes. Now, the other thing I realized is I needed to create a digital infrastructure, and I needed to leverage technology, because the best way to diagnose is through technology. And so we started to do that, right? We set up an enterprise organization. That means I said, look, then there needs to be, we need a center of excellence for finance, for IT, for tech, but we also needed some product management. We need some content management, some brand management. So we have an enterprise setup. But the other piece was technology, right? So how do we, okay, before technology, how do we restructure people into those teams? Remember, I said there's a customer team. What did they do? Diagnostic and design and analysis. But we have a design and impact team, and we have a content, right, team that enables us to ensure seamless delivery, right? So these are new structures, and people didn't like it. Oh, I'm a sales guy. What do you mean by customer engagement? And no, we don't want you to sell only. We want you to engage. We want you to diagnose. I don't want to do diagnostic. I just want to sell. Or I don't want to sell. I just want to diagnose. Right? So you have all these questions, right, as people morph in their positions, right? And then we started to say, even for business development, right, and client servicing, we needed to create a back-end customer management. We needed to create a front-end customer management. We also needed to kind of figure out a couple of other technology parts. I got no time to, but we started to invest from 2018, so 2017, 18, and really invest in technology and infrastructure. And then came the fourth part, which is culture, or the fifth part here is culture. So it came to culture to say, okay, culture is about beliefs, right? There are a lot of beliefs that are driving our actions that results in something. And these beliefs are related to experiences. So when you experience something, you create a belief. And this belief translates to action. Okay, so that's kind of our philosophy on how culture is created. And so we said we needed to create a new culture. And so we said, for us to do culture, we need to have a grounding of results, right? So what's the result that we want? We want a culture that, and so we set up this culture of going beyond expectation, a BE culture. But the results that we wanted is we wanted to be the number one leadership authority, because our mission at that time was about leadership authority. How do we establish Leaderonomics as the ultimate leadership authority when it comes to the topic of leadership, right? And so that was to be the top leadership authority in 5 countries, right? So we said one leadership and 5 countries, and we wanted 100 million in revenue, right? And 100 million in views, in digital views, and so on and so forth. So we set this as our new culture. And our culture, the B culture, was to achieve our result, right? So the culture, and so to drive culture, what you need to do is you need to have beliefs. And what were the beliefs? We said we need to be synergistic. We cannot be running one thing. We need to be connected and matrix-like. We needed to be accountable. We need to be courageous. We need to be agile. We need to be excellent. And so we started to put all these things together. Now, not easy, because when you change a culture, so I tell you our culture before was the naughty and nice culture. Naughty and nice is like this, naughty but nice, right? So we are a bit naughty with each other, we're cheeky, and we play around with each other, but we're very nice as people and we do good, right? But that's not a very scalable culture, because what we do is every week Hui will play a prank on somebody, or I'll play a prank. But then we started to move from 5 employees to 10 to 15 to 30 to 40 to 70 to 80 employees. And as we started to grow, we realized that we can't play pranks on everybody. So the people we didn't play pranks on felt very, I'm not loved as much as the people who were play pranked on, right? And we said, look, this is not a sustainable culture, right? It's a very engaging culture, but not very sustainable, because it takes a lot of effort from the leaders, right? So we said we needed this BE culture. And what were the cultural beliefs were these things that we outlined. And then we started to go and say, how do we create rituals? Remember, experiences or rituals creates this beliefs. So we set up rituals, and these are just some of the examples of rituals. And so as we did all this, right, we started to go, like we said, leadership authority was up to 2019. So 2015, I would say 2015 to about 2019, we said 2015, 2016, we said we needed to be the leadership authority. And that was our mission. So our mission was to be the leadership authority. And so we reached this point in 2019, somewhere last year, we say, hey, you know what? We think we've achieved our mission. We think we're the leadership authority. Many companies in Malaysia will come to us when it comes to leadership development, when it comes to being the authority, when it comes to understanding leadership and transformation and so on and so forth. And we say, look, we think we've reached this milestone, but our mission, our vision remains the same. Our vision is to grow people into leaders, build communities of love, and transform Malaysia, transform India, transform all these other countries that we are in, Indonesia and so on and so forth, right? So our vision remained the same. We never changed our vision from 2007 when we started. That was our vision. Today is the same. It's just that in 2008 or 7 when we started, the reality was here. And we needed to get to this point, which is set up the organization. 2008, when we started our organization, to about 2013, was really how do we figure out product market fit and so on and so forth. 2013 to about 2019, it was really about leadership authority. How do we establish leadership authority? Now we are coming to 2020. And 2020, the reality is not only COVID, IR4, the Industrial Revolution 4 with digitization and everything. And we realized that, wow, for us to move from here to the next key result, right? And maybe that's 2025, I don't know. Whenever that is, we needed to come up with a new mission. And this is phase 3 transformation, right? Is how do we optimize learning and development for organization? And this is the next level that we wanted to get to, right? And so the next level, and we said, look, what's our new mission statement? From 2020 to 25, we want to optimize. We still want to work with organization communities, right? Because we are building communities of love, right? And organizations are a key part of communities, right? So we still want to focus on communities or organization, but we want to work on two things. We want to work on learning and engagement. And the way we are going to do it is we're going to use intelligence to drive it. And we want to be a specialist. We want to go deep in this space, right? And in learning and engagement. And what we want to stop doing activity, because a lot of times when our products and services are very activity based. What we want to do from 2020 to 2025 is we want to do two things as a service to companies and communities. We want to build infrastructure. And that's how we think the transformation phase 2 will happen. We want to build infrastructure and we want to build transactions and rituals. So again, our business model, right, was previously helping companies to understand what their issue was and then creating activity that enables them to solve these issues. Now, because we already have diagnostic as part and parcel of what we do every day, we know that's part of our DNA, we diagnose, right? But now what we do is we take it one step further. Our business model, our structure, and our culture is going to move into hardware and software. How do we help companies build infrastructure? How do we help companies and organizations build rituals and transactions that are repeatable, that are just in time, that are on demand? So again, you see, Leaderonomics morphs again into a new business model, right? So this is the phase. Remember earlier I talked about phase 1 when it was product market fit. Phase 2, which is I'm trying to set myself up for scale. This is success, but I want to set myself up to grow. Now is phase 3, which is I want exponential growth, right? I want to grow into $100 million company or $1 billion ringgit company, essentially, or $200 million company, right? And I say the way we're going to do it is we're going to change our business model. Our business model is really going to focus on two things. We're going to provide platforms, right? And so we need a digital business that is very deep tech digital that provides, builds, and enables platforms for companies and systems, but for organizations and community. And the other one is we're going to do transactions, but we must be scalable transaction. It must be consistent and repeatable. And so now this is happening right now, and right now, and I can tell you this, right? I know that it's not going to happen overnight. I know it's going to see what happened in 2013 is when we started what I didn't tell you is that when we started the journey in 2013, 2014, when we started the phase 1, the scaling part, right? My leaders started to get angry with me. So I want to resign. I'm upset. I like the way it was before. And we started to see seniors, a couple of senior leaders come and, either we discuss and we find a way for, we realize there's the market, the fit is not there anymore, right? And so we say, okay, it's time for you to move on, for us to move on, and we'll work out a reasonable way for us to part in certain ways, but make sure that you can come back as faculty. And we worked out different agreements with different individuals, senior leaders, right? And so we took out, essentially a lot of our senior leaders, or in a mutually beneficial way for both sides. And then on the same time, now the same thing is happening now, right? Because now we are moving into a new era where it's no more just diagnostic design and so on. It's additionally, we are going to move from activity into actual infrastructure, actual software development, in terms of the transactions, right? And so we'll have the same phase where people are uncomfortable, people are upset. Employees are like, oh, what's happening? You guys there's no understanding, this is crap, let's go back to the old ways. And this always happens. And I told you the lesson I learned, right? Destruction comes before building, right? If you don't destroy something, it's still in the background. What happens is over time, the thing in the background will come and destroy the new thing that you're trying to build. And this is what happened to Eastman Kodak. This is what happened to a lot of companies. Eastman Kodak created a digital business to do digital cameras, but their core business, right? They didn't destroy that business. So because they didn't destroy that business, what happened is the digital business they created got killed by the core business. And this is typically what happens in companies. You got to destroy, or at least if you don't want to destroy, then create another company. And so what we started to do is we created another company called Leaderonomics Digital. And your job is totally to build digital infrastructure. We have another organization, corporate, that really is to drive the corporate transactions. And then finally, we created another company. And so this happened in the last couple of years. Another company called Community. And Community was to be a community center where we continue to provide community engagement and community transactions and community infrastructure for organizations that need it. And so that was Leaderonomics. And I briefly talked about a couple of lessons learned along the journey. I want to go deeper a bit on a couple more lessons I've learned, and hopefully some of this may be useful for you in your own organizations or you in the things that you do. Now, let me just look at. There's no questions, so I will move on. If there's any questions, please feel free to ask at any point in time. I'm happy to answer them. And if you think what I'm saying is too simple, let me know, and I'll go into a little more deeper analysis and deeper understanding. But this is a very important lesson. When we try to build something new, right? Make sure what we've built in the past is destroyed. And this is not easy to do. It's one of the hardest things to do because remember, we actually built it, right? And this is the same concept as an individual. When you want to learn digital, right, you have to unlearn some of the non-digital stuff. It's like I always akin this to when the transition between riding a horse and driving a car. So about 100 years ago, there was a transition. People all drove horses wherever they want for transportation, and then they had to go into riding a car, right, or sitting in a car, right, or actually driving the car, right. And if you are managing a horse, right, for transport, you will manage the horse lah. So you are taking care of the horse, you feed it. When the horse wants to do its thing, you take it to the side and do their thing. You clean it up. If not, it causes pollution and all kinds of bacteria that flies. And so your job is, for transport, you have to do certain things. Now, come a car, and when you start riding a car, firstly, it's like, hey, I got gear, I got this, because the old-fashioned cars, right? I mean, you have to move gears, and it's not automatic like what we know it today, and it's complex, right? One is learning the car. Then when the car spoils, when there's a tire puncture, when this, it's not so easy like a horse. A horse, you just beat it, it'll go faster. And so what happens is you have to forget about everything you learned about the horse, because driving a car is completely different from riding a horse. It's two very different things. And this is what learn, unlearn is, And this is my biggest takeaway, is that when you try to move your organization, it's the same like moving from a horse to a car, right? It's completely different, and you have to unlearn and relearn, or in this sense, you have to destroy and build, right? Now, the other few lessons, I'm going to walk through a couple more lessons in the next 5 minutes, and then if there's any questions, I'll try and answer them along the way. The other, beside destroy and build, what's your advice to aspire? Yeah, I'm going to go. I'm going to answer that. So I'm going to go to this. So I'm going to come. I have about 10 other lessons. So let me do this fast. Now, the first thing I think is about clarity. The hardest thing for leaders, right, is about clarity. I always ask this question. Above all, a leader or a change agent must be what? And you know the answer to this, right? The most important part of leadership is actually clarity, right? And this is the hardest thing, It's and sometimes we call it alignment, but it's the hardest thing to be clear. It's very, very hard to be clear, right? And if one of the things, right, especially with SMEs, right? I do this all the time with my teams now, is I start to say, hey, are you clear about our vision? Right? And remember the previous chart that I said, are you clear about the reality where we are today? I call it reality clarity. Are you clear about the journey or the mission of how we're going to get there? Right? And these three clarities, right? And after this, I'll give you all these slides so you can have it, right? And these three clarities are very important, but it's very hard to establish. Sometimes as leaders, we are not clear about our own vision. Sometimes we're not clear about reality. And sometimes we're not clear about how we're going to get there. What's the plan, right? And if we're not clear, none of our leaders will be clear. So that's one of the hardest, and I spend a lot of time, in fact, we have some lack of clarity in marketing and content and so on. I've been spending weeks and weeks in the last few weeks just trying to clear up some of these things. What's the clarity that's needed? What's the clarity that's needed for my operating team? What's the clarity that's needed for my content team? What's the clarity that's needed for product marketing? What's the clarity that's needed, for each and every different aspect? And this is the hardest part of leadership, is to make sure there's clarity. And as leaders, I think we should spend a bulk of our time on clarity, right? So one is destroy before you build. The second thing is about clarity. Now the third thing I want to talk about, and clarity also is about focus. So I remember in a crisis, right, in March, right, when we had the COVID lockdown, the first thing, I sat down with Hui Ming, my co-founder, and I sat down with her. I said, Hui Ming, we need to have tiers of work. So let's create tiers: tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and tier 4. And we said like this: every work that a person does, we tier it. Either you're tier 1 work, tier 2 work, tier 3 work, or tier 4 work. Now, for the next quarter, because we're in a crisis, right, I want us to only focus on tier 1 and tier 2 work. And so this provided a clarity document for my team to say that, okay, I codify all my work by tiers. This is tier 1, this tier 2, this 3. And what does tier 1 mean? It's absolutely mission critical. What is mission critical? It means you're going to bring revenue. You're going to basically enable the business to keep staying alive in this era, or this time, right? What is tier 2? It's important and strategic. But if we don't do this, the boat won't sink. But it's important to set us up so that we do that. Okay, so then we say, okay, let's definitely 100% tier 1, but also do tier. Forget about tier 3 and tier 4. Now this is what clarity is. Is you constantly have to be able to say, whatever situation you're in, what's the clarity that's needed for that situation. And this was our 90-day plan. And in fact, for Q3, starting in July, I did the same thing, right? I sat down with the team and said, okay, let's look at what is tier 1 for us. The tier 1 has changed, right? And what is tier 2? Tier 2 has changed. And here's the tier 2 for third quarter 2020, because we're still in a semi-crisis, to some extent. Then another lesson, right? Another lesson that I want to talk a little bit about is this lesson when it comes to mastery and starting. Now, here's one thing I realized, is this, whenever you start something, let's say you start a new business, the first part is quite cool, So let's say you start a business on day 1, well, you immediately see some traction, in the first few months, when you feel very excited, right? And you feel really good, But what happens after that, as you go deeper and deeper, and you become, because initially there's a lot of excitement, there's beginner's luck, people support you, your family supports you, and so on and so forth. You see some sort of traction. But as time goes on, as you start to establish yourself, you realize that this dip, that happens. The more effort you have, the less your results, And you're like, what's happening? And I remember this in 2008, 2009, while we go, 2010, we started to see a dip, And this is the point when you start dipping, and usually we say this, the most businesses will koyak, or will sort of die within the first 3 years. And why do they die? Because when they come to the dip, right, is where they start to quit. Now, I'm telling you, you don't quit when you're somewhere here. You know why not? Because you're reaching a point where the rest of it is upside. This is where you reach expert level. Your business is really good. You become really strong at what you do, right? Your business, there's an easy beginning, but there's always this dip, And you have to tell yourself, I always remember Napoleon Hill wrote this book, right? Think and Grow Rich. And one of the stories he talks about is his father. His father was a gold miner. And he says the father, when initially he found a bit of gold, wow, very excited. And then for the next 3 years, he found nothing. And then he just realized that there's no gold. And he sold everything. He lost everything. And he gave everything to this guy. And this guy who bought over everything at $1 or something, basically, he took over everything, including the debts. He found gold 3 feet. 3 feet. This famous story from Napoleon is he found it 3 feet from the last dug place by the guy. Now, so if Napoleon's father just dug another 3 more feet, he would have found, and not only gold, no, they found crazy amount of gold, like crazy amount of gold. And usually this is what happens to most of us, We reach the dip and we get discouraged, But here's what I'm telling you, the dip, all of us go through a dip. But when we reach the dip, if you're already somewhere in the dip, keep going. It's pointless to quit. You will just, unless really your business model is totally flawed. But if everything you think is right, it's just time. As time goes on, as you become expert, the hard part of becoming an expert is it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of pain. So that one is very important. And Seth Godin also talks about this. He says that some people come to this point very fast. Some people go this way. Some people this is the best point for you to quit before you get into the dip, because you've seen sort of an initial dip. You quit straight away. Don't quit here, which is the worst point. So that's another lesson I learned is I realized that sometimes when I quit something too fast, I realized that it's such a waste, because I should have just gone a little bit more, because the next guy did it and he succeeded. Or sometimes so the best point is like, if you're here somewhere here and you realize this is too much effort, you quit early. So my thing is that when you try something, and if you don't like it, quit early. So my thing now is, whenever we try something new, if we see it's not going to have traction, we just quit, forget it. And so sometimes some of my employees will say, you're so flippant, you keep changing your mind. But the reason I do that is because of the dip. I don't want to waste time on the dip, because this is going to take a lot of time. And the moment I enter the dip, I better go all out. So some of those things I say, sometimes you just change your mind so fast and you just quit. But sometimes you like crazy, even though we are losing so much money, and you still go. The reason is because I know this is the dip, right? So that's another lesson that I learned is that if you're in the dip and you're already in the dip, just go for it. If you're not in the dip, but you know that things are not working out so well, quit right away. Because it's going to be, unless you feel that you're ready to invest the time to go through the dip. Okay, so this is a book called Seth Godin called The Dip that you can read on. Now, the next lesson I learned is that the best time to transform, right? Most of people say the best time to transform is like when I said, see, I did a transformation here. There was a transformation for me to move from this to here, and then I now move from here to here. I mean, this is the new transformation, right? I want to scale and I want to grow, right? And so people say, okay, these are good times to transform. But the problem, the problem is the world is changing. Competition is changing. We can become a global player overnight. Technology is exponential. Customers' expectations are going crazy, right? Culture, things are changing. Leadership roles are changing, and because of all the changes in there, right? I think the best time to transform is now. Because imagine if you are a company that's here. Guess what? COVID just brought you here. You are in a downward trend now. You are in a, if you're here, guess what? COVID has brought you here. You're in a crisis. If you're here and you're about to scale, wow, it's going to be great. Suddenly, COVID's brought you here. And you need to just relook. I mean, to me, any company today, right, has to look at what's happening in the world and say the best time to transform is now. And because transformation is hard, right, it takes years. So if you say, okay, I'm on a transformation. So I know it, in Leaderonomics, right? Many of my folks will tell me, okay, we're going to transform, we have morphed, we've pivoted. Inside I know, okay, it's going to take us 2 or 3 years. It's not going to happen overnight. But, obviously, we want to do it as fast as we can. But the reality is transformation takes time. And that's another lesson. You want to transform, you're always in one stage, right? And so you need to figure out every stage, right, has a slightly differentiated business model. And even as you peak out, there's a new business model, because here, when you come to here, you want to come with a different curve. You want to figure out a new business model that will take you on a different trajectory. And so that is pretty important. Now, my fourth lesson, and this is in addition to the disruption lesson, is this, is you must be the best in the world. Now, this one is very important for you to understand. A lot of my employees sometimes get upset with me. I say, we want to be the best in the world. And they say, oh, who you think you are, a Malaysian company? How can we be best in the world? Don't talk shit and all these other things, right? And here's what I think people don't understand, People understand best in the world is actually very subjective. Why is it very subjective? Let me explain this problem. Do you know the mass market is dying? There is no longer one person that's best in the world. If I ask you what's the best coffee in the world, right? Depending on who, Eric, you tell me something. Ashraf, you tell me something. Tam, you tell me something. Rachel will tell me something. Meng Hong will tell me something. All of you guys are really. All you guys will tell me. Best coffee is the one I have in SS2. No, this one is the best, right? It's very subjective. Best in the world is not defined by us. Oh, because my product is like this. Best in the world is actually defined by the customers. Customers define best in the world. And best in the world, and the problem is this, the problem is best in the world has become very what we call micro market based. What does micro market based mean? Micro markets is there are many best in the world markets. For Stephen Tan, the best in the world is this. The world around him is the world that he knows. And for Newton, the world around her is the world that she knows. Now, all of you, right, have your own best in the world. And our job is to the best in the world for you. right? So which means there are many gazillion micro markets that we all can be best in the world in. And why do we need to become best in the world? And this is very important for me. I got this crazy CM Punk. I saw this quote: "I'll go be the best in the world somewhere else," right? Because there's always a place for you to be best in the world. And let me explain this. This is called the infinity problem. What's the infinity problem? The infinity problem is a very simple problem. The problem is like this: the world has so many choices. Let's say I want to buy a cereal. Wow, there's so many choices that the choices have become close to infinity one. There's so many choices. And so what is the problem with infinity? When you have 20 choices, you don't know which to choose. And so you know what you choose? You choose the market leader in your world, right? So if your friend told you, hey, that Leaderonomics is the best, in your world, the number one in the world is Leaderonomics, you pick Leaderonomics, right? Now, if your company, right, you need to understand many of these worlds, and you need to be able to position yourself as the best in the world in that market, in that micro market. And to me, that one is a big lesson I learned, is that actually I need to figure out what these micro markets are and how I can be positioned as the best in the world for their market. And this is important to understand. We're not saying you are the best in the world, because there's no more best in the world. There's too many, it's an infinity problem. There's too many choices. So there's no more best in the world, but it's very important for us to understand what best in the world is. Okay, I've got a couple more questions. I've got a couple more minutes. I'm just going to go along. If there's no more questions, I will sort of continue, and we will taper off at this. So let me talk about a couple more lessons. These are more personal lessons for myself. So the first lesson is this I think it's important for us to be a believer in what we do and I've seen this, many times when I don't believe in what I'm doing, it translates in actions, and my employees don't believe it. So it's very important for us to be that believer. And I tell you, one of the toughest one was that transition to be a diagnostic design and delivery. I really believed it. And I know that no matter what, I kept pushing, because I had so much pushback from employees, from customers. Don't do this, I don't understand what you do. But because I was a believer that we need to be a hospital, not a pharmaceutical company, it helped us significantly for us to make that transition. So I think that's very important to be a believer. I think the other piece is that many times, and I'm learning this from the technology, this is the learn, unlearn. When I look at technology companies, I realize this, there is a time to be strategic, usually a short time, to reflect, so you spend some time in reflection, and you understand, okay, this is what I need to do. But then be action biased. After that, it's about, even if you want to create a product, right? Planning is not so important anymore. You just create the product. And then if it doesn't work, you either tweak it to work, or you throw it away and create another product. And I realize more and more, we need to do product development this way. We need to be action biased in terms of how we do this. And I love this quote. I'm a great believer in luck, and I find the harder I work, the more of it I have. The other thing I found very interesting, and I have a quick story to say on this, is that make the most of unplanned events. One of the most interesting, I think, that helped us significantly in the Leaderonomics brand was I was having coffee with the CEO of Star at the time, a guy called Ho Ketat. And Ketat and I were having coffee, and we were just talking hey, I saying your paper sucks editorial is rubbish and he said, you're so clever, you think you can do it. And then I said, I think I can put together a better product. I think I can do a pull out in leadership that is of higher quality. I think right. And he said, you're so clever, then you buy up some pages and you do Then I said, you give me a cheap price, I'll buy right. And we worked it out, and we bought some pages. I think at the time it was 16 pages, and we started the Leaderonomics pull out in the Star. And obviously we paid for it, but what happened was it turned out to be a huge business model for us, and it ended up becoming such a great content depository for us. But it was unplanned. It was not something I was thinking, let's go and create a media unit. It was totally a conversation, but it ended up becoming, and this is where I feel sometimes we need to learn to say yes more often than not. Don't be afraid to say yes. I mean, all of us, we teach ourselves to say no. But sometimes I think the idea is to learn to say yes. And don't be afraid, because sometimes yes gives us a new window that we never really realized that could happen. The other piece I learned is, this is me personally, is, try not to eat alone. I do eat alone sometimes, but this is more for reflection and just to catch up. But if you can, right, especially in the office and stuff, you always try to eat with somebody else. And why? Because, and whether it's, for me, it's about customers. Sometimes I, always, try to meet with a customer for breakfast or lunch, or, with an employee. And the idea is that when you do that, you get more ideas, you get understanding, you get alignment, you get miscommunication that happens that helps you understand, oh, I didn't realize that what I said was misinterpreted. And I thought it was just good advice. I mean, there's a book by Kit Ferrari who writes about this thing called Never Eat Alone. And I read it and I said, look, I think that's kind of the philosophy that we've taken at Leaderonomics, right? Never lead alone, because when you're in groups, you tend to get more ideas and you tend to get, a lot more insights. And the last two things I want to talk about is about helping others, right? And I realized this is really powerful. The more you help others, I help Ketat on a number of things, setting up the volunteer portal for the Star and a number of other things. And when you help somebody, they tend to become your friend, and then they come to you for help, right? So when you help others, they ask you for help, and sometimes they give you reciprocal help, right? When you need it. And this is the power of giving, right? When you give, right, you ultimately get more. And I feel that's one important lesson for me. And the last part is this whole concept of prayer. Sometimes you just have to pray a lot. And COVID was one where I have to pray a lot. But I feel that the more you do good, right, the more God answers your prayer to some extent. So I think that helps a little bit. So with that, I've sort of exhausted my time and pretty much this opportunity. I don't see if there's any more questions, right? And if you have, if you have something significant that you've learned and you like to give that back to all of us, maybe in the chat you can write and say, hey, here's what I learned from today's session. I give back to me and also give to others who are on the webinar to be able to learn from you. So thank you very much. I'm going to pass the time back to Andrea. And I think Andrea has a special gift for all of you, right? Or special offer for all of you. Andrea, I'm passing back the time to you. And while we're doing that, feel free to write down some of your insights you learned from my sharing today. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Roshan. This has been a very interesting webinar as well. Coming from Leaderonomics, it's interesting to really look into like a reflection as well for me coming in here. But anyways, like Roshan said, we have a very interesting thing to give it to you. It's actually one of our special codes that we like to send out, and I'm going to send it out to you now. It's an extra 10% discount for one of our products called Necole. And this is for people who want to get ahead and continue learning
and also be guided in that learning, because we are getting a lot of information out there. This information is everywhere. You Google something, something will pop up and you just continue reading. But with this Necole, she's here to guide you in a sense that she pulls out quality content for you that is based on your learning engagement. So when you use this app, they will actually use an expert guided pathway that is based on the science, a technology that we are developing called Science of Building Competence. And we have like 52 pathways and weeks that will help you journey in this learning about leadership and being a leader by yourself, and how do you influence everyone else around you as well. So with this, because you have attended this, we are going to push out something called a 10% extra discount. And we hope that you use this to subscribe for this really great app, and use this promo code for an extra 10%. So we used to sell this for $75 for a year, and we have already cut it down to $50 per year, which is a really good investment of your time if you're very interested to learn more and develop yourself and get ahead. And now with this promo code, you will have extra 10% off just for Roshan.
I just want to say once again, thank you for joining us. We hope to see you for the next one. Do stay tuned to whatever that's happening with Leaderonomics, not just our webinars, but what we're doing in our community segments and all that. You can follow us on our social media platforms. Just type in Leaderonomics and you'll be able to find our updates and see what we're up to. Okay, once again, thank you very much, everybody. Hope you have a good week. And that's it for today. Goodbye.